I've scheduled a training session through our admin staff, through our battalion chief, and with the duty crews. The target audience of this presentation is the duty crews here at Station 61 and the outlying stations, so we're going to be cycling them through, as well as the volunteers up at 151. I've prepared this presentation. I came up with the material. I've collected all of my training aids, got all the saws and all the equipment, everything we're going to need for this. I've addressed any of the climate needs because we're not outdoor. We don't have to worry about any weather considerations. We've got a comfortable climate in here. And I have the tables and everything set up in the typical format we use for the training room here. And it normally works for us, so we decided to go with that. Today I'm using auditory, visual, and tactile. So we're going to do a little bit of hands-on. The intent of that is to cater all different types of learning needs or learning types. And like I said, I've inspected and tested all the AV systems in this classroom. So we're going to go ahead and start the presentation. As you can see up here, I'm Firefighter Ben Thomas. I've worked here for a little over 3.5 years. You're at Clark County Fire District 6. And today we're going to be talking about chainsaws, cleaning, and maintenance. I'm a gearhead, so chainsaws are something near and dear to my heart. So we're going to go ahead and pass around the class roster first if you guys want to fill that out so we can make sure this all gets documented in Firehouse. So first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for coming, welcome you to Station 61. If you haven't been here, this is the training room here at Station 61. Our exits are located in the front of the room and the back of the room. The bathrooms are down the hall for the men's, and the women's is just through the door here. If there's an emergency, we can go straight out this back door onto the back bay, or back apron of the bay. As for calls, you guys are both on duty right now, so respond to your designated calls. We don't have anybody providing coverage. As far as distractions, we do have crews working upstairs, so we'll try and limit distractions, but we'll work with what we've got. So introduction to the subject. Today we're going to be talking about steel rescue chainsaws and specifically the MS440 rescue models. This is the engine or the saws that we have on our first out engines. We're going to go over the basic parts and terminology, cleaning, a little bit of the maintenance. We'll do a skills practice, which is just hands-on for you guys with the saws. We'll do a little skills evaluation after that, after you guys feel that you're comfortable, just to confirm, you know what you know. And then we're going to do a little knowledge check at the end, just to see if you guys comprehended what we're going through. And then that would conclude our presentation. So goals and objectives. Students should be familiar with the terminology and the components of the saw, and students should be able to successfully clean and maintain rescue chainsaws within our scope. So obviously we're not expecting you guys to do a full top-down rebuild. We're just doing some basic maintenance that'll help keep these running a little bit longer. The importance of what we're teaching here. So chainsaws are a crucial tool in the fire service, and it's not like a Halligan where we can use it, just throw it back on the rig, and next time we go to grab it, it's going to be in the same shape, maybe a little rusty, maybe a little dirty, but it's going to work. Chainsaws are not like that at all. The maintenance and cleaning of a chainsaw, they can become inoperable, or you can't even finish what you're starting. So I don't know if you guys have ever tried using a chainsaw before that's either not been sharpened or had the chain on backwards. You ever had that? Oh, yeah. Somebody puts it on the rig with the chain on backwards and you try and go cut and it's just burning through the material. Right. So that's something really simple. So I mean, this may be a basic class, but something as simple as putting a chain on backwards can make you not even get through the roof cut. And I mean, these are life safety issues. So like I was saying, that these are just basic issues that we can easily overcome. The other benefit of knowing just basic maintenance and cleaning is with just a little bit of work, we can save out of service times. I mean, there's plenty of time when we have a bunch of saws out of service. So this can cut down on that as well as maintenance costs. Then it's something that we can do in-house and keep these running a little bit longer. Terminology and components, we're not going to go too in depth on this, but this is just like anatomy and physiology for EMS. We need to know what we're actually working on. So I'll kind of walk through it up here and we'll actually point at the parts on the saw. So part that you guys are going to be working on, number one up here is the carb lock box. This is on the back here, and this is how you, this is what you take off to get to the air filter. The guide bar, that's what I've removed here. It's what the chain goes around. You can see it on the assembled saw. The bar nuts, which are these, they go onto the bar studs here. That's what holds the guide bar on. We have the chain tensioner, which is located between the two bar studs, and that's what moves the guide bar to tension the chain. We've got the sprocket back here. This is just like the same kind of sprocket on the back of your bike, and that's what the chain lies into. So inspection on that, we'll talk about that. The master control knob, you can see it's pointing right there on the back. As you guys know, this is the on-off choke, half throttle right there on the back. And this isn't necessarily terminology or components, but it's really important to know. Our saws use 50-to-1 fuel to oil mixture or ratio, and the bar oil, use designated bar oil. It can be any of the brands, but just don't use 530 lightweight engine oil or anything like that. So cleaning. This is way more important in structural firefighting than in, say, wildland or the use of your home saw. I mean, at home, where you're just cutting brush and wood, so you just have to worry about sawdust or branches. In the fire service, we're cutting drywall and insulation and tar roofing and garage doors and water pipes and all sorts of stuff. So that kind of stuff, not only will it gum up a saw enough that if you were to pull it off of a rig dirty, it may not even work, but sometimes you can't even finish your cut because you pull so much material up into the sprocket and like the clutch assembly. So that's why cleaning is really important for structure firefighting. So what I like to start with is a quick gross decon of the saws. Gross decon, just like when we come out of structure fires, you knock off all the big chunks. So I like to go over that with the saws first, take all the big parts of it off before we start disassembling it. So some of the cleaners and tools we need for this, the only tool we actually need is this, which is a scrunch. It's the screwdriver on one side, wrench on the other. It's a basic chainsaw maintenance tool. As far as the rest of the cleaners, we use compressed air, shop towels, and warm and soapy water. That's pretty much all we need. And we need to make sure that we use PPE at all times when we're actually working on the saws, which is eye pro, gloves, and when we go to fire them up, we're going to need ear pro. So as you can see, I already have one of the saws disassembled there. As far as disassembly, all we do is remove the guide bar cover and the guide bar itself. So you can see we loosen these. These are basic thread, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Back off the chain tensioner just a little bit. So this would be after we've done our gross decon on the saw, kind of knocked off all the big particles. And the reason we removed this bar cover, as you might be able to see on this saw, right there where the chain wraps back into the clutch assembly and the sprocket is where you get all the major buildup. So every time that we take these off, actually we'll talk about it on the next slide, it's important to lay this the way that it was laying on the saw so that we know the orientation. So just the quick maintenance, the cleaning we would just go through with the air compressor and knock all the big particles and clean everything up. The maintenance of the chain, you go through and just make sure, see if it has any missing teeth, any missing links or bent or heated up, anything like that. The guide bar, you can take it off and check to see if it's straight. And you can feel for burrs on the side. And then every time when we go to replace this bar, it's important to flip it over so that it wears evenly. So just remember to save the orientation, and then we flip it over when we go to reinstall it. The chain and sprocket assembly, that's just to make sure that it moves freely on there and that it's not clogged up with any material. That's a little bit out of our scope as far as the basic maintenance, so if there's something wrong with that or the clutch assembly, just write it up, it'll be taken out of service and been repaired. So the big thing to remember from that is flipping the bar over every time we go to reinstall it. All right, so this skill is what we're really going to be working on today, is working on the air cleaners. So you can see here, that's the MS440 with the air cleaner or the carb box assembly removed. So we loosen the cap nut on here, and before we take anything off, it's important that we put the master select lever all the way down to choke, and that flips the choke closed on the throttle body and keeps any debris from going inside there. So once you loosen this all the way, we remove it. You can remove the cover, and then that's the only thing holding the air cleaner on. So this is why you got to make sure you got the choke all the way on, and then you can remove the air cleaner. So the way that we clean these, we just went over removal, inspection. You're just making sure that all the parts are there and that it's not damaged or anything. So the first thing you do for cleaning them, you can just tap them out in your hand if it's just a little bit of sawdust. This has a pre-filter wrap on it, but you either tap it on your hand, you can use an air compressor, and you can clean it out. And then if it's really bad, you use warm soapy water, make sure it dries before you go back into reinstallation. So what I was talking about, you guys can see the choke lever that flips down and it closes off. I'm going to take it off for instructional purposes, but now you can see the butterfly valve opens and then it closes. So that keeps stuff from falling into the carburetor. So then reinstallation of this, if you haven't used the warm soapy water, you can just put it back on. And that just slides right back on, and then we're going to tighten it. That's the reinstallation. So up there we've got pictures of the disposable filter, and then that's the heavy duty filter, what we had on here with that pre-filter wrap. So remember, when we're cleaning it, we go tapping in the hand, then we use the compressed air, and then the soapy water. And then one thing when we do go to reassemble this chainsaw, when we're putting the bar and everything back on, like we said, you got to make sure you flip it, and when you actually go to tension this, you have to apply upward pressure on the bar, because that kind of simulates how it actually is when it's cutting, and that's how it'll be installed on the saw, and that'll show the appropriate tension. So making sure that you have upward pressure on the tip. So upward pressure, make sure that you're flipping the bar. Those are the big things to take away from that. All right, and then start the saw. That's the last thing you want to do to make sure that everything runs appropriately. If the chain is off of the sprocket a little bit and kind of gets caught in between that and the clutch assembly, it won't work, and you'll find that out when you go to fire it up. So that's the last thing you always do anytime you work on a saw. Take it out and fire it up. Make sure you have appropriate PPE on. We're not going to be doing that today, obviously, because we're doing our classroom indoors. So that's just something to make sure that you verbalize or that you think about every time you go to do it. All right, so skills practice. I'm going to bring the saws over here to your table. So if you guys want to make sure that you have your iPro and gloves on. So we've got one scrunch for the two of you to share. You'll each get a power head. And the skills that we're going to be going over right here is just the air cleaner removal. So we're going to be taking that cover off again, make sure that we have the choke on, and then we'll go through, kind of talk about the cleaning and maintenance, and then we're going to reinstall it. Okay. So go ahead.
And where's the choke again?
Oh, Aaron, you want to make sure you got your iPro down? Thanks. So the choke is there on the side. You pull the trigger and push it all the way down to the bottom. And there we go.
So I'm going to dust it off, clean it off, like that. And then in this case, it's not coming completely clean, so I could use an air compressor.
Yep, and we'd normally be doing this in a shop. We've got rags and compressed air and everything. Unfortunately, we're in the classroom, so we can't. We just have to simulate that. So that would be a filter that'd be a good candidate for the air compressor. And it's actually just a pre-filter wrap, which comes off, and then the filter underneath is probably clean.
Okay.
So, yep. Nice job. Okay, how do you guys feel about that?
Good.
Pretty good, pretty straightforward?
Yeah.
All right, Well, we're going to do the practical skills evaluation now. So if Aaron, you want to go ahead and step down into the hallway. Chris, we're going to do yours.
Okay.
We can go ahead and do it right there. All right. So let's get your. So do you feel comfortable with the steps? We kind of talked about making sure that you have the choke on before you do it, the different steps that you're going to use to clean it. Okay, so a little skills evaluation. This is just saying the steel chainsaw. Students shall select appropriate tools, disassemble the saw, clean and maintain all necessary parts. So for this scenario, you're just going to be doing the air cleaner.
Okay.
So don appropriate PPE, inspect the saw for damage, remove any components that you need to, and yeah, just like we did, clean it and then reassemble it. The last component is start the saw to ensure operation before placing back in service if applicable, and we can't do that in here.
Okay.
So,
Excellent.
all right.
Okay, so proper PPE in my gloves and my iPro. The tools I'm going to use is the scrunch. I'm going to use it to the back. I'm going to make sure that the clutch is all the way down. So it'll come off. Take it off. Take out the filter. It's dirty, so I'm going to first dust it off like that. If I can't get it clean this way, air compressor, and if not that, then I'll use soapy water. Reassemble it. I can also change out the strap that goes over the outside. Reattach back housing, tighten it down, not too tight. Then I would test the saw and reassemble it.
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. You did awesome. You hit all the points. So you donned your PPE, you inspected the saw, you removed all components, you cleaned everything correctly, and then you verbalized starting the saw if you had to.
Okay.
Cool.
Excellent.
So if you just want to sign here next to your name.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right, and I'm going to record this in Firehouse, so you'll have it on your training record. Okay, if you want to go get Aaron. All right, Aaron, how do you feel? Do you feel comfortable enough to do a little skills examination? All right. So if you want to go ahead and put your iPro and your gloves on. So what we're going to be doing here, this is just a little skill scenario. Using this chainsaw, students shall select appropriate tools, disassemble the saw, clean, and maintain any necessary parts. So you're going to go through PPE, inspecting your saw for damage, remove all necessary components, clean all components, perform any lubrication if you have to, clean and replace any removed parts, and then start the saw to ensure operation. Because we're inside, I just want you to verbalize that step.
Okay.
Do you have any questions before we start?
I don't.
Okay, that's your pen. Go ahead.
Okay. Make sure I have my PPE on. I'm gonna go ahead and look through and clean all necessary debris off the saw. Since we're gonna be doing the air filter, I'm gonna go ahead and put the tension on this. Unscrew it. I'm gonna take off the housing, making sure that the choke is all the way down. I'm gonna pull the air filter off. Butterfly valve is closed into the throttle body. I'm going to visually inspect the filter for any major damage or anything. I'm going to go ahead and scrape it off. Tap it with my fingers. Clear in the wood shop or the shop. Use the air compressor to blow out any other materials. Or clean it if we need to with soap water. Warm soapy water.
Okay.
Everything else seems to be in good working order. So I'm going to replace the filter back where it was. The housing back on. Retension of the screw. Make sure that this is just tight enough. And since we're inside, I'm going to verbalize restarting the saw after I've completely put everything back together.
Okay. Are you done?
Yes.
All right. So you did a good job. You had your PPE, inspected the saw for damage, removed all components, cleaned anything that you had to, correctly replaced and removed any parts, and then you verbalized starting the saw. So you did a good job. All right, if you just want to sign it right there next to that. So I'm going to document this on Firehouse, and I've saved both your guys' test scores, so I'll enter those for you guys.
Okay, cool.
All right, if you want to go ahead and bring it back in. All right, so you guys can take a seat. All right, so how'd you guys feel about that?
Good.
Good, okay. So do you think you're ready to do the practical or the written exam?
Yeah.
Feel pretty comfortable about that? You guys remember everything we went through with the saw, the points to remember about the bar, rotation and pressure and everything? Good, and then you remember the fuel ratios?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, I'll get you guys right. So if you guys can just make sure you put your name and the date on there. When you're done, just go ahead and turn your test over, and then I'll bring them up and grade them. All right, you both done?
Yep.
Okay, Aaron, if you want to go and step out of the room, we'll go over test score real quick. So Chris, you did pretty well on your test. I mean, you definitely passed. You got the first couple right here, but number 5, you answered wrong. Is what tools do you need to tension the chain? The correct answer would be scrunch. So do you have any remembers the screwdriver wrench one that we used?
Right.
Cool. You got any questions?
No.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to document that one. But yeah, you only got 1, so I mean, you still passed.
Okay.
Easily passed. Cool. All right, if you want to go ahead and step out and get Aaron. All right, Aaron, I mean, you got 100%. It was a pretty simple quiz. You did a great job. You got everything. Cool. Do you got any questions?
No.
Awesome. Chris, you come back in. All right. Okay, well, this is the conclusion of the presentation. We did a brief, just going over terminology. Well, first we did why it's important, our goals and objectives, but then we did basic terminology, a little bit of cleaning, maintenance, and you guys did practical skills, the hands-on portion, which I think is really important. You guys both did great on that. And then we did the knowledge check, and you guys both did great on that as well. So that concludes our presentation. So if you have any questions, do you have any questions?
No.
if you guys have any questions in the future, you can get a hold of me. Like I said, my name is Ben Thomas, working here in District 6. I've got my email up there as well as my cell phone if you guys have any questions in the future. All right.
Excellent. Thank
So
you.
that would conclude my presentation. As far as the Instructor 1 portion of it, I would document any of the training. So I've recorded both Aaron and Chris's scores on the roster, and for their practical and for the written. We keep the writtens in this folder, which is it's our department SOP as far as security for testing. So after I've recorded the scores in here, I enter them into Firehouse, which is our department record keeping, and then also in Target Solutions, which is what we use for our department training, I guess, record keeping. So all of those would be securely kept in here, and then I would submit my memorandum, my lesson plan, all of the class record, the class roster, and all of the tests. And that concludes my presentation.